actually a really good meeting. I think partly because we have so many new faces and it's good to see everybody here, and thank you for coming out. Tonight we wanted to talk about the anthology that we've got. The deadline or submissions are going to start coming in April 1st. You've got until the end of May to get your submissions in. And I have some submission guideline printouts that I'd like to send everybody with later on this evening. Isaac, you were going to talk about the anthology, I believe, later on. Okay. We also wanted to touch a little bit on the upcoming conference. Terry, you've got some information about the auction, and I want to say that there was something else that we needed to talk about the conference. Do you remember? Oh, we've got flyers for the conference, so we will also touch on that. Tonight's meeting, the topic we wanted to explore was what inspires you as a writer. And we did send out on social media a few weeks ago asking you as a writer's prompt to consider in 500 words or less. Did everyone see it on social media?
I did not.
You did not get a hold of that?
For some reason, I don't get, and I'm dialed in, but I'm just not reading them for some reason.
Okay.
Algorithm, I guess, is Facebook.
Okay, it's very possible. Did anyone else see it on social?
I didn't. I don't do social media.
Okay,
It
so,
would help me like him. I'm hit or miss on seeing it unless
okay.
an email would be better.
Well, I think an alternate course, because we really are wanting to incorporate a lot of active writing in this group, and writing prompts are a great way to do that, to, give you a month to kind of think about a relative topic or activity, and then, we can share as a group. And so every month we do send through email a newsletter, and based off of the responses today, I think that the writing prompt, that we will just start including that in the newsletter. I do believe everyone gets the newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
Yes? Okay.
I think I do get the email most of the time.
We need to get it together.
I get a lot of email.
But I think that might be a more consistent way for us to reach out to you guys, and we'll just make sure that.
It's nobody else's fault. I mean, I get like 100 emails a day.
Oh, so we're loving it.
It's just hard to not just delete all, not even look at them. They don't go away otherwise.
I understand.
I have started finding it helpful to, I'm still back in the dark ages. I have found where you can go to your groups. And then when I click groups, I can see this group. And if you've posted something, this is on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've posted something that day or the last few days or something like that.
Well, maybe we can talk a little bit about that at the end of the session, and see if there's a way that we can, help our members get targeted more with social media. Yes.
Katie,
How do we sign up for the newsletter?
If you signed in the front, I will make sure that you're on the list, and you can get that newsletter. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Absolutely.
Katie, you shared a while back a way to make sure you're getting that.
Yeah.
Can you share that tonight now since we're
I
on here?
can't promise that it will work because, Facebook, but it
Oh, there's a trick.
helps.
Okay.
Yeah, it helps. So go to the group when you're on Facebook, so that you're at Cartersville Area Writers, you're on the Facebook page. Now I remember how to do it.
I know, I put you on the spot. but-
Yeah, there's a way, and I've of course forgotten it right this minute. Manage, click on manage, they changed this. Manage is at the top of the page, and actually that's for me as the
Manage notifications under the 3 dots.
bingo, notifications, and then put receive all,
Mine set to highlights, that's the problem. All posts.
yeah.
Okay.
It won't guarantee you'll see them, but you have a higher
Well,
chance.
It helps.
I've had to rely on Mandy to send me 38 prompts a month. Are you still coming? It's 3 minutes from now. Are you coming?
You told me you needed that.
I do. I'm making fun of myself, not you. That's how I show up half the time.
Katie,
Well-
where is that on the at Facebook page?
Are you on an iPhone
Do you
or?
want to go ahead? What?
Are you enough?
What?
I've got notifications.
We need a-
Well, hit the three dots.
Like I've got it on my.
Three dots
You
there.
put on this corner
And
here,
then,
and then you stand
manage
here and
notifications.
look at your phone.
And then yours is highlights as well, so click the top, all posts.
Okay.
There you go.
Yes.
What is
You're in
the
the top
Facebook
ten.
page name again?
Um,
And that's probably why I.
Carter School Area Writers.
Hardly the notifications about the coming
Area
together.
writers.
I just kind of set it up and then everything's just kind of automatic.
Cool.
But,
You had something?
Hmm?
Did you say something else?
she was just wondering.
Oh,
what-
no, I had asked her like,
Again, I
what was the
making sure.
name of it, cause I was
Yeah.
like, I missed a word.
Okay, well, do we wanna go ahead and start with just the updates for the conference real quick, and then Mandy, I'll move
Mhm.
the floor over to you?
That sounds good to me.
Okay.
So, like you said, there's some new faces here tonight, so I'm just gonna act like you guys don't know all of this and just tell it from the beginning. So we're having our annual conference, this will be our third year, it's May 17th, it's on a Saturday, 9 to 4. And we have our first flyers here, so this is going to give you sort of the overall, information. But we'll have some more later on that go into the details of who our speakers are. But Robert Gwaltney, do you guys know who that is? Wrote the cicada tree. Oh, I'm sorry. Ta-da! Yeah, I forgot. I'm supposed to be in front of that. Okay. He's just silently laughing. Okay, the cicada tree. Does anybody know that? He won Georgia Author of the Year. Anyway, that was 2022. But he's great. So check him out. This gives a little more information about him. But we've also got Ann Hott. Raise your hand if you know Ann Hott. Okay, if you don't, you're gonna want to check her out too. Richard Fierce, one of our members, he's going to be talking about world building, and Ann's going to be talking about history and paints in writing. So that's going to be interesting. Richard's going to be doing world building, and then Tanisha Curtis. We had Tanisha before for a workshop, and she was great. She's going to be doing a different topic, so we're not going to have a repeat from one of our workshops before, but she's going to be doing write a book this year, and that's the goal, right? To get on it. So, and then Vicki McIntyre, she has a small publishing house, and she does editing. She does a little bit of everything. So she's going to be talking about metadata. Are you guys familiar with that term? It's going to be a broad scope there. She's going to touch on a lot of things. Then also she's going to be doing Q&A at the end, Q&A with publisher. So you'll be able to ask those questions that maybe you've been wondering about, or we'll kind of plan that ahead of time so we don't put her on the spot. Maybe we'll do something where you can email your question in, and we'll take a a certain number of questions. But anyway, it's going to be workshop style. This will be our third one, like I said, and they're all going to be a little bit different. So we're seeing what everybody likes, and there's a discount for members. So if you're not a paid member yet, it'll make it $45, or it'll be $60 for non-members. So I'm going to pass these around so everybody has one and can actually look at that instead of just listening to me talk about it. But I'm super excited because we've got some good people.
And also about the conference, you know, we were kind of just guessing in the dark last year for t-shirt sizes. And, you know, without commitment that you guys are definitely coming to the conference or not, we were wondering if tonight you could just kind of post, like, I think it's like a tally sheet, and let us know what size of shirt that you would order. This doesn't have your name on it or anything, but we're just trying to get a sense of, you know, what sizes the general group is wearing. And so as we're starting to purchase some of our promotional items for the conference, that we can get the right feel, right fit.
That would be very helpful because, yeah, you're sort of just guessing, like what's what people's sizes are. We did have a few last year who came, but we didn't have their size, so. Does anybody have any questions, like right off about that? That's, like I said, tickets I say tickets went on sale. I like it's a circus. The tickets are not on sale, it's registration. That's what professional people say. I don't say tickets went on sale.
But we can buy them now.
What's that?
We can buy them
Yeah,
on the
buy
website.
now, yeah. Katie, that's correct, right? We're good to go?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's just like a full day of workshops?
It's a full day of workshops, and, well, our keynote, he's gonna be sharing, what did I say I didn't even say his thing, have it on
Is he
here.
doing world building?
Yes.
Richard Fierce
Yes.
is doing world building.
You wanna be there for that, yeah. Katie, do you remember what his specific, our keynote, what his specific, title of his talk was going to
Yeah,
be?
give me just one
Okay,
second.
thank you. You think you've got everything on a flyer, you know, it's only so large.
It's
and-
called Finding Our Voices, Finding Our Way. He will
Yeah.
discuss his writing journey and finding his voice.
Thank you, I've got an editor over here.
No!
Well, this was our on the fly thing that I did this afternoon, so, anyway, this is just amongst us, I'm a mess writer, so, no, thank you.
I was gonna out you though, I was just showing you.
You outed her pretty.
It's okay. It's okay, yeah, I know, I'm like right here, this is really happening. But yeah, I plan to mess up some more for later with. Hey. Oh, sign in Gray over there if you don't care, over at the door. So, yeah, it's gonna be great, all typos aside. So, he will,
What hours is it?
9 to 4.
9 to 4.
Or did we say we're stopping it at 3 and we'll be leaving by 4? Yeah,
Yeah.
9 to 3. So the keynote, which I started to say, he will probably give a little bit of his experience, his writing journey, but he's gonna have a specific goal in mind with that. But the others are gonna be just typical workshops, so you can expect that classroom style. And we're gonna be at the Legion Theater downtown, so you're so excited about that.
Is it okay to come to like part of the day?
Yes. Yeah, you can. And we're gonna have, we'll talk a little bit more about it another time because we did just get this up on the website, but we're gonna have a limited number of author tables for our paid members. So if you are a published author and you have books, more information to come there, come on in, and there's these around. So we'll have breakfast, we'll have lunch, coffee, all those things. So all those details, expect to see those on Facebook. So like you said, make sure you're seeing all the things because we're gonna tell a little bit more about our speakers and such too. Hey, Hannah. So we talked about that we were going to discuss tonight about inspiration for writing. There's kind of a fine line between, we don't want to cross over each other, but basically what I'm going to be talking about is the things that have inspired me and finding inspiration in my day-to-day life and how that has influenced my writing. And I'll have a little bit of a exercise or something that you can take home with you. So we've got a lot to pack in tonight. So we're not gonna like sit here and do all the exercises I have. And we're gonna do some fun, she's got the fun stuff. So you'll wanna take this will be your quiet space stuff that you can do later. I want this to be levitated and just right here. Just kidding, I've got it working now. Okay, so many people have a story, they want to create a story that's very separate from who they are. You know, like you've got a plan, like I want to create this story and it's some sci-fi thriller or something. It's completely made up. So many of you have that you're working on, you've got in mind, that sort of thing. So getting started is not a problem for you, right? You kind of see where your story is going to go, at least in a nutshell. But some people have almost like a beginner's writer's block. Do you guys ever have that? Like whether you've written something before or not, do you ever feel like, I don't know how to get it rolling? Anybody? Yeah. So that's kind of what we're talking about tonight is a couple of different ways for inspiration. So mine, I'm looking at what can inspire you where you are. And even if you've written like 10 books, I still think this is kind of a go-to in my opinion. It's one of the ways to look at it. So I want to share a little bit about my writing experiences over the years and how I found inspiration and that starting point. And time again, by basically considering my own life and my own experiences. Then I want to, like I said, I've got some exercises to do. So let's just get started. And I'll try not to be long-winded because it is actually organized and it's not me just talking because I might have told you something my granddaddy said when I was 7. All right, so when I started writing, like serious writing, like hoping to actually finish a book, you know, and try to publish it. So they said to write the truest thing that you know. You guys have heard that, write the truest thing you know. So that can mean something different to you guys, but the way I look at that was try to find something that I knew about. So I began actually began with a memoir story, and that was called The Last Trailer. So it was based on the summer that I graduated high school. So what that allowed me to do is take true situations, true people in my life, and just get experience at writing. Lots of times we get caught up on the storyline and where we're gonna go with that, and I think that can kind of be a stumbling block. I don't know if y'all ever do that, like, what am I gonna write about? But if you have something that you know has happened to you, then you can write that and not be, I guess, kind of like as an exercise in getting the writing out without having to come up with a topic. So what I did was just something that I thought was, sort of had all the things: love, friendship, freedom, that coming of age story right after high school, and I felt like I could bring the passion, enthusiasm, and all that, and I wouldn't have to think about coming up with a story. So another plus was the fact that I felt like I could do that, since it was my own story. I knew where it was going to go. So what I did was chose this as my first true, being as true to myself and writing the truest thing that I know. So I was able to get grounded and focused on my storytelling abilities instead of having to come up with an idea and create it from scratch. So I'm going to go through all these, and then I'll go through a way that you can take each of these and use it as your own. But writing about yourself can be heavy. So the idea, the actual thing is, write the truest sentence that you know. What is the sentence that's true to you? That's kind of very specific to me. So I was just thinking about overall, like, what are the things that are important to me? What are the things that I know about, that I know that I can talk about? And so I put that about myself aside, and had to work on something else for a little bit. So who saw the blog? We talked about seeing Facebook. Who saw the website though? With the Facebook page actually led us to the website for blogs. Tammy did one first, and then I did one. So we'll have somebody else in April. Did anybody see those?
I saw it, but I haven't read.
Okay, all right.
I just now saw it.
Well, that was a great idea that Katie had to come up with, because it lets you kind of meet each other. We don't get to meet each other and know each other in this small amount of time. So it's just kind of a way to get to know where somebody's coming from with their writing and what they enjoy, what their passion is. So y'all look for that on the website and anything on Facebook that's like leading you to something, because we're trying to engage the best we can with the limited amount of time that we have. So that's a really good way to do that. And I'm hoping that the more we get the word out, a great idea can be great, but if it's just in a bubble, it's not as helpful. But anyway, so I did mention that in my blog, that I was working on something heavy, and so I put it aside to work on something lighter and shorter and easier to handle. So what I did was I looked at something else true in my life, looked at doing a story in a different way, and I decided to write a short Twilight Zone style story called Tracing the Devil. So once again, I used the idea of writing true. So did I really know a guy named Trace or a demon and a Ouija board? Maybe not. But what I actually did know were people, places, and a story. And I know that story, and here sits the story in Mandy's head. But what I did was I took it and made it unbelievable. So I made it supernatural, and I stretched that, and I say, because I do get asked sometimes about those stories, like, was this somebody you knew, or was this a situation that happened in the Trace books? And so I always say that I think when you're writing fiction, and there's any truth to it, your reader doesn't need to know which parts are true and which parts are fiction, and that's when you've managed to do some justice. So I took something that I knew of that was somebody else's story. Is that right or wrong? I don't know. I guess if they're okay with it. But I took something that I knew of and I made it into something that does not seem true, where the first one was a memoir. So again, though, that was something that I would say is writing true. I took that nugget of truth, and I thought, okay, so what if this person, you start with the smallest things. What if this person didn't look like this? What if they looked like that? What if it didn't take place in this time, it took place in another time? And you can take those things and you're still using something. It's almost like taking the clay and using this idea of the truest thing you know to mold that in different ways. So that was the next thing that I did, and then I actually became a young adult series, and it's been a lot of fun. So as you do that, as you're writing something that is like I say it's like a base or a recipe. So you've got your basic things that you know of to be true to you. And as you expand upon those, then I think the story kind of comes to life. Have y'all ever been writing something and then you're like, oh my gosh, this guy knows this, I didn't even realize that. It's like, well, it's your story. But it's surprising, it's fun in that way. I think that's what happens. So if you get it going, it's like if you like to cook, which I like to cook, but my husband calls everything alakazam. It's Mandy's alakazam because I do a lot of casserole stuff. But I can have like a base thing and then you start switching stuff out, right? So it's the things you know and then making it something else. So that was the second thing that I did, was still utilizing the same idea. So by the time I wrote my standalone book, which was called A Fair in August, I used truth in a different way for a different kind of inspiration. I sought out visuals for my truth. So when I was a kid, like I'm a very nostalgic person, and I remember things to a fault, and so I'm really always pulling from those files that for whatever reason, 5-year-old whatever is right here with all the other today stuff. It's very tiring, but what I did was I thought back to when the fair was like a big deal to me. I don't know, was the fair ever a big, like the county fair come to town, or am I just old as dirt? So the whole time I was writing this and had this idea that I wanted to write something about a fair, it's because I was very moved by that experience as a child. And that experience in my head when I was writing A Fair in August, that was all down here at the Legion, American Legion, where the fair was. And when I was a kid, it was a big deal. And I was really drawn to that. I thought I was going to run away with the fair and sell tickets, as I said in the beginning. But yeah, that was
Carney?
yes,
I can see
absolutely.
you as a carny.
Really?
A little bit.
Oh,
A
yeah.
little bit.
I can't get down with that.
I think
So.
you could.
Yeah, my husband still gives me a hard time about that. But I'm not going to run off with a local fair because they're not the same anymore anyway. But yeah, I was picturing that. So I had that embedded in my head. So this was still like the true thing to me, right? But it was all in pictures. So I was picturing, what did that look like? Where was the Ferris wheel? Where was this? What did the parking lot look like? And so you're pulling from things in your memory to make those details. Because that's one thing I do get some compliments on and feedback is that I'm good at the details. So I'm real focus on that. If that's something I'm good at, I'm gonna stay in that place. But another side note to that, when that title came about, and this is another like true thing, like something going on in your life that you can utilize. So me and my husband, we have a motorcycle, and we were out of town. We were, I think, in Tennessee, and we were going along, and I see like this fair on the side of the road, and I lean up and I'm like, oh my gosh, you never see a fair in August. And then I sat there and was like, oh, I like that title. And so I'm always writing in my head on the back of the motorcycle, and I don't want to be in charge of anything. I just want to do my thing. And so I was like, oh, I think I know what I want this to look like and all. And it was like a 20s, an idea for the 1920s. And I ended up doing like my story set a few years in the future. So it's the 20s, but it's 2020s. So again, I was taking something even just for a title. So there's a lot of stuff just all around you. So when you say like, oh, I can't think of anything, you're probably thinking of something like large. So if you can think of something small and start pulling from that, I'm hoping that will be some helpful ideas. Let's see. Talked about the visual aspect. So okay. Another part of when I was writing the story at the fair, I was writing a character that was not like me. I've got some characters that are like me. I think I'm in like all of my characters some way or another, but I might not should say that out loud because if you read them. But this one character, she wasn't really like me, so I had to rely on something that was relatable. And I don't know if some people just grab from something way out there, or if you guys look at like the things that are close by. Do you relate your stories to things that you see every day, or okay?
I tend to pull from movies a lot.
Yeah, something that made an impression. Yeah, I think I actually even said something about that in here too. Like if you don't have a character or something that you are seeing or that is your personal experience, then you can pull from something you've seen or you've heard. And a lot of this is just for the experience of writing. I mean, you don't want to just like copy something or copy somebody else's creative idea or anything, but it does help to have that if you don't have the experience. So what I did with this girl, she's she's like in her early 20s. I relied on, she's a disgruntled employee she's a young journalist, and so I pulled from when I worked at the Daily Tribune News years and years ago, and then some issues that I had there, not down in the Daily Tribune News. But it was my experience in journalism, and so I could pull a little bit from that. Nothing like what she was doing in the story, but it helped me. And then I also pulled from a job I had in my 30s where I had really awful boss. And so I pulled from that too, and just kind of meshed those together. Do you guys ever write characters that are somebody you know? I mean, I know people do that, so you just not.
Certainly, little elements of them for sure.
Yes, yes. All right. As I was writing that, I decided it might be neat to write 2 books at the same time. It's not neat. I wouldn't advise it. If you're trying to publish those and meet deadlines and stuff, it's actually a kick in the teeth. But I was working on a book called The Tracks of Trace Aaron. So it's funny, I was going to talk about my thing with railroad tracks and back roads, and it's more of the same stuff of running away with the fair kind of thing. But I got stuck by a train on the way here. It's one reason I was late, so kind of ironic. But I wanted to just like jump on the train as a kid. Did anybody want to do that? Like jump on the train and leave?
Yes.
Just not know where you're going? I didn't have that
As a
one.
kid?
Oh,
How
yeah.
about when
I
you're
would
an
say probably
adult?
number one fantasy.
You can still do it. You can still go. Yeah, I always like the abandoned places and just, I don't know, just finding things like this. So it ended up, I wrote about a curious cave throughout my trace books. And so all these things were true things to me. And it makes it a lot easier to look at those things and pull from those, because it's just like a ton of resources there, right, of what inspires you. I gave a talk at that time, somewhere during that time, that was at the depot in Adairsville, and it was something like back roads, train tracks, and hidden trails, or something like that. It was the inspiration for a lot of my writing, because my writing might not be Southern like, I have some weird characters sometimes, but it's Southern in the landscape, and it's Southern in the dialogue, and it's just, you can tell it's Southern. The towns are Southern and small. So when I do decide to circle back around to finish that first book that I started on years ago, that was supposed to be the memoir style, that I was going directly to the source of what was true to me. I plan to approach it differently. I realize it's probably not the best to make things obviously true when you're writing about something, but that was such a good practice for me because I was very passionate about it. Like I would stay up late and I was just getting that out because it was my story. You know, we always think our story is just very important. So especially if it was something that was a very pivotal time in your life or something, that made it easy for me. I say that I grew up in the country because I did, so I can say I grew up in the country. That's such a country thing to say. But so a lot of those things that I saw were very rural. And obviously that's not going to be relatable to just anybody who's reading. I mean, I don't know about y'all, but when I get told that I have to dissect what I write and I just have to sort of whitewash it and clean it up to be palatable for everybody, I don't really agree with that because it is my story. That's the whole point of it. And the point is also to introduce somebody who's not a part of that world so that they can, see what that's like. But I do think you have to add some things. You have to bend a little bit. And so that was one of the things when I think I'm going to write this again, which I said I would for 2026, I will introduce probably some other ideas, some other characters, some things to make it, I guess, a little bit more relatable to people, but I just don't want to bend with the true part of the story. But have you guys ever done that? Like you're writing one thing and then people, especially in critique groups, we talk about critique groups here too because we have one. But do you ever get that feedback, like I don't understand where you're coming from, or have you read somebody else's stuff and you think, no, it wouldn't be like that. I heard that before in a critique group I was in that other people would tell each other, you know, I don't think that would really happen. I mean, in my opinion, it's a book, so it can happen. If you want it to happen, it can happen. But you do have to take that into consideration. Do you want this amount of people reading your books, or do you want to try to reach some other people? So that's another thing that I would try to probably change a little bit. Of course, you can always just write everything completely true and say it's a lie, say it's fiction, whatever you want to do with that. But I have some. Was that clear or super fast about the idea of taking something that's true to you and stretching that into something that's at least for exercise, at least for the practice, to say, you know, okay, this is a story I know, so I can write it well to the way that you want to write. I mean, obviously everybody has to be, your writing needs to be cleaned up and stuff, but the idea that you could maybe get further with something when you're first starting to write, if it's something that you know, if it's a story you know of. Like if you watched a movie, you talked about movies, so let's say you watch a movie and then you had the exercise to sit down and write it your way. You would have something to go by. So I'm hoping to, with these little exercises that you can take home, and you can just write. I didn't bring paper because that's, you know, that would have been great. If you want to just write these ideas down, and then you can kind of work on that in your own time and, you know, see if it's helpful for you. Like I said, this is something that just comes natural for me because it's the stuff I like to talk about. I kid with my husband that one day I'll be that person that's like, oh, that used to be the so-and-so, old man, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, one day? Because I literally do it all now.
Yeah.
Everything's Kay's Castle.
Yes.
It's Kay's Castle. He's like, what was this Kay's Castle? Because he's
used to
from
live
Canada.
behind the Case Castle, the
Okay.
original one.
Oh, okay.
And the house that the people used to live in,
Yeah?
it was like the haunted house in the neighborhood because it was all boarded up, the
Oh my
shelter.
gosh.
And that house is featured in so many of my stories.
Yes, so it's something that's important to you. And that's, I think that's a good place to start, the things that drive you before you get to the things that drive other people. But we all kind of agree Case Castle's important.
They're still making their ice cream, or maybe they take over the brand.
Maybe.
You can get their branded ice cream at food.
Okay, I don't know that much. I just know from being a little girl and going to
But I would always see the big giant ice cream cone with the,
Yes.
with the
cute little-
three
yeah.
different colors of ice cream on it.
Yeah.
I'm not from the South, I have no idea
I
what
know,
you're talking
you're like, what are
about.
you talking about running away with the fair and Case
No,
Castle?
no,
I
it's ice cream.
I thought it was only $1, I didn't realize it was a chain.
Okay, so let's look at each of these and kind of break those down as an example. So the first idea that I used of writing true was to show that you can find inspiration in what is closest to you. So let's review that. The first example was about creating a memoir. So that might not be appealing to you at all, or you might be, I led the most bland life ever, it's super vanilla. Somebody told me that once, so I was like, well, mine's double chocolate chip, but even with vanilla, you can make that into, I don't know, something like French vanilla. I mean, you can make it interesting. So, and it doesn't have to be a memoir. So consider this. If you can think of something that you can remember, it could be a moment, or it can be a story somebody told you, but something, not a podcast, not a movie at this point, but something that you heard of, that you found interest in. So think about that. Or maybe a family secret. I don't know if nobody has family secrets, but if you did,
We don't talk about those.
talk about those. But you can write about
My
those.
last thing in the anthology.
Yeah, yes. So, yeah, we don't talk about it, but we can type. And I don't want anybody in this computer right here. So you can type anything you want, maybe. Anyway, you're not publishing, this is for yourself. So, obviously we don't use other people's stories and publish them, but you can take that right here and you can use this moment to write like a page or two just from memory without any embellishing at this point, and see what that gives you. Like, was it easier to get out, because we're always trying to do that word count, right? It's like steps for the day. So you're trying to get that word count, and is it easier to meet if you know in your head without having to do that thought process? You've got a story, it's there, it's already downloaded. You don't have to go through all that mess to get to something. So see how that goes. And then another one is take another page for a second example, and you could even do like 2 or 3 of those, and see, was it easier to write about a story somebody told me, about something that happened to me? Because sometimes when you get into your own things, it gets heavy and then it's kind of a stumbling block. So you might want to keep it light for this example. So on another page, you could consider, like how I talked about, taking something and making it obviously fictional. You could take one of those that we just wrote on the first page, or you could take something else and make it, like I took something realistic. It was a story from my teenage years, and I made that into something supernatural. What parts of that? That's my deal. But you can make it into whatever, even though it's just a very average or realistic thing. I just told it a different way. So take a moment, write down like 3 things that might have happened to you recently that's bizarre or curious. And I don't know if y'all want to do that right now, or if you want to wait until home. But it gets it, if you want to just take like a second, you can just write down. See if 3 things come to you.
3 things that have actually happened to me.
Yeah.
And,
It's happened lately?
It happened lately. Like, oh my gosh, I saw this woman and she was, okay, never mind. Okay, I saw a woman walking 17 dogs down the road. I don't know how she did it. I don't know, just something you saw weird, or I saw somebody walking around their yard in a circle. What was that about? Just like 3 things that were bizarre, curious, made you pause, and to see if you even have something. Could everybody come up with something, even if it wasn't 3 minutes? No. Ouch.
I was kidding.
So good. Anybody get something, at least? I mean, you don't have to tell me, you don't have to share with comments.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, you got something? Do you wanna say?
Yeah, I can share one. Yeah.
Okay, share one.
So, you said this happened, somewhat recently. I had a cousin embezzle a couple $1 million from my grandparents' family business.
Oh my gosh, nobody's gonna talk that
Sort
up.
of inheritance fraud situation.
Wow, okay, so that's a story. That's a story that can go a lot of different ways. You missed it, you'll never know. Unless you play it back, over there. What'd you have?
Well, I just saw something bizarre on the way here.
Yeah?
It's on, 411 White, and I see these flashing blue lights, and there was something with a white logo behind it. Well, usually you see something that's just a little bit wider than a lane.
Yeah?
This thing was like, took up 2 lanes.
I have a picture, cause I was
Did
stuck
you
in the
see
traffic, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
Okay,
It was-
so,
I don't know,
I
it
saw
was a-
something at exit 290.
It was
and
like a
it said
turbine,
state
it
patrol
was, I don't know,
guard.
it took up the whole
But it was getting on,
road.
it was getting on 75 there,
Yeah.
She's
yeah.
got
But it,
visuals.
Yeah.
it had weird,
well, it got off at
She's
2.
telling the
it
truth.
was in multiple parts, and
We
they
like
had
to
on those
pull off the
wide,
road for
yeah,
you to
It was
buy.
2
2 parts,
Don't
yes.
know.
And you
Yeah.
could
It is-
tell that it probably went
It's like a white
together.
honeycomb kind of
It might have been a turbine for the dam or something, that's what I was
Yeah.
thinking, but
It-
who knows?
it's definitely
Oh my
pieces of something that had
But
to be
we could
assembled
make
later.
it into whatever we want it to be.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, whatever it is, or, even if it wasn't really something weird, you don't know, so you're just making it your thing. I had a weird thing this week, this past week, I had 3 family members in the hospital at the same time for all different reasons. One was my husband, and then I had a funeral to go to separately from that. So that was all in 1 week, and I could have went with like The Stand, Stephen King's The Stand, with that, what are they in the hospital for? Or, I could have said, if I was writing that, I could have said, well, it seemed like they were in there for separate things, and then in the end it all comes together, there was a connection. Like, you can take these things and do whatever. Of course, the reality was it was just very stressful, and
I was just thinking it was some kind of sci-fi type, you know.
That's what you go with.
frustrating thing.
That's what you go with. So look at that and take something that you, like I said, you write down a few things, write down 3 things, and see where you can go with that.
Particle accelerator that they were putting together to, the Higgs,
Enhance uranium.
yeah.
Okay, I think maybe this is a whole writing prompt, Katie, for the next on Facebook. The next example I was going to give about using, goes back to me talking about using my surroundings in the area I grew up with. I wrote about the fair. So take another page and describe the following: your home, your town, your street, your job, and not in the boring way. Really dig for that. Your friends, as many yours as you want. And these are just some examples, but that way you can take those and stretch that by making your story more relatable or more inclusive, and you can see where maybe you're being exclusive, and that's when you can add characters, places, and situations that are outside of your experience, and you know, they like you to do your homework for that, but for those you can start like any characters similar to the ones you've seen or learned about. That's what I said, like even in movies, if you don't have somebody in mind, and kind of add back to that. But in closing, I'll say about writing a true sentence is what I said before. I don't know about true, but I will say it was really cool when I was writing my fair story, A Fair in August. I was, again, on the back of a motorcycle, and I literally heard, I'm going through the scenes in my head, and I heard this character say this sentence that is like the pivotal point in my book. And I got really excited, like I couldn't believe he said this, when I know I wasn't consciously making that up in my head, but it obviously came from me. But it's really fun when your characters come from something you were just writing as basic stuff in your life, and then they take on their own thing and make that into something that you weren't expecting. So start small, start with the things that you know, and just find how you can stretch that. And I hope y'all have fun with that at home, because we don't have time for it now, but and hope it didn't take too much time. Like I tried to.
You're doing great.
Mandy, I have a question. When you're out and about and these ideas come to
Yeah.
you, how do you recall them when you come back?
Well, it's a sickness. Yeah, it's a sickness.
Right in your phone.
Yeah, I
You're in the
remember
back of a
stuff.
motorcycle. How do you put it on your phone?
I don't ride
No, I
motorcycles.
do it, like my mom jokes about, like, it's not fun for her, but I know you're gonna say I was wearing that yellow blouse and we were over at the old Kmart, not the one over here, but the one downtown. Yeah, that's how I do it, but a lot of people like take notes, like, you know, voice notes, and as soon as they get home, try to get that down, but I rely too much probably on memory, cause there's too much stuff in there. But maybe ask some other people that aren't weirdos.
As a speech therapist and somebody who teaches memory strategies to kids is rehearse. So if there's something that clicks in your mind, just keep saying it over and over to yourself, and then
Yeah.
wait a few minutes and try to bring it up again and try to push it back into a little more long-term.
There you go.
Open the notes app on your phone and just
Yeah.
write down a brief little synopsis. I don't care if it's 3 in the morning when you gotta use the bathroom. It may not make any sense the next day, but if it does make any sense, you can go with it. And that's, I have hundreds of those.
Today I had my Medicare checkup, and if any of you've had those, they
I
tell
had
you,
one a few weeks ago.
they
I
tell
know
you
where you're
3
going.
words to remember, and they're gonna ask you what they
Oh,
are
okay,
later, and I
yeah.
knew they were gonna do that, and my son does, memorization stuff, he used to do magic, but anyway, so he said to make it like a movie in your head, and it was banana, sunrise, and chair, and I pictured somebody eating a banana, looking at the sunrise, and then they sat in a chair. I made a movie out of it in my
Yeah,
head,
helps
so
you
I
remember
remember
it.
it, yeah.
Yeah.
Mine was baby, kitchen, and then I said, and another word that started with a V. And my doctor said, oh, you're good.
2 out of 3 ain't bad.
That's right, that's right.
I knew it started with a V.
So Mandy wanted to talk about, how to find, what inspires you, and, what, can inspire what you write. And I kind of wanted to visit the other side of inspiration, and that's inspiring you to write. I think I was talking just today about how often, life catches up with me, and I have a million things I've got to do for my family, and it seems everybody else. And at the end of the day, and when I do have a time, you know, to write for myself, honestly, I get so stressed out and like, this is my time, I've gotta produce, I've gotta come up with something. And I'm staring at that blank page, and the weight of it just stalls all bit of creativity. And so I kind of wanted to talk about that. What ways can you inspire that creativity to start flowing? And to really kind of have some practical tips. And I'm curious if any of these are, you know, methods that you guys use, or maybe if you guys can help add to this list. But first of all, finding a place to write that there are no distractions. For me, at home, that's not it. I've got laundry to do, I've got meals to prep, I've got this or got that. So I write really well in the car, you know, in a car line, or, you know, in a parking lot, when I physically cannot be pulled to do anything else. I find that very helpful. It's just me and my work. This kind of touches a little bit on what you were talking about the, you know, what 3 things that did you see that was bizarre or curious. But if, you know, we can train our brains to be more curious just about life, about anything you see, and ask questions and be curious about it. Someone comes in all disheveled, you know, are you thinking in your head, why are they looking like that, or why are they out of breath? You know, question what you see, and it will turn on that mechanism in your head, and you'll find that it will kind of pull through to those characters or the places that you're describing in your setting, because there's that curiosity will feed through. And if you're lucky, if you find something new, it might challenge something that you've already settled in your brain and make you reconsider something. I do this one a lot. I explore other creative outlets. I just started oil painting. I can get lost in painting for hours. I can lose a day in painting. And once I find that I'm in the project, and all of a sudden, again, that part of my brain has kind of opened up, and I can see, just like with the paint, you make a wrong stroke and you can just go over it with another color. All of a sudden, you know, I see when I'm writing, you know, and I'm like, is that the right sentence? Is that the right word? You know, it's okay, because you can always go back and fix it and go back and edit it. And it's taken a lot of that pressure off myself, and it's made that blank page not so scary.
One of the most freeing things that happened to me in my career is that I had a manager who stressed progress over perfection.
Oh, that's a
And
good
I was
one.
like, ooh, I'm taking that to my writing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just start, and then you can always go back and fix.
That's right. So the first painting that I ever did, it was just a date at one of my friends' house, and I had never touched paint before. I showed up with a picture of a squirrel. I don't know. It had a really cool S shape to it. I just went with it. And so I'm dabbling the paint on, and I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna do this. I'm horrified. She's very accomplished you know, an accomplished painter. And she's like, just trust the process. So I would just add in a little more color, add a little more shape, add a little more. And a couple hours later, it actually looked like a squirrel. I should have brought it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't need one to see one of these.
But she says, yeah, she just said, you know, just trust the process, just keep working. And I found that's translated very clearly to the writing. You know, some writers will sing or cook or anything that you're using, you build something. It just really kind of opens your creative receptors. What other creative outlets do we have in this room?
Gardening is a great one.
Okay, gardening.
Knitting,
Okay.
sewing.
Yeah, working with your hands and creating, it's, you know, that's definitely.
J.R.R. Tolkien was a big fan of walking. He walked, that's not really a creative outlet, but like for his writing, he like walked all over his county in England. Oh, sorry.
That was next. No, actually, no, it's true. Like, if you go outside and you walk and you're breathing fresh air and you're listening to the sounds, you know, maybe you hear a car or a dog barking, and you can realize that there are 1,000 different narratives going on around you and you're not in the middle of it to get in its way. And walking is a very good process to get out of your head in a way.
I think a good way to create characters is just people watch.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I just got back from a reggae festival last weekend. Talk about people watching. It was crazy. And listening to music can really help. You know, find something that just tears at your soul, you know, like, and just blast it and just lose yourself in that music. And oftentimes you can get out of your own way in that way. Anything that really provokes a strong emotional response, you know, it just helps you just stop so much of your linear thinking, I guess.
This might be too obvious, but reading really does that for me. Like I'm reading Dune right now, and that has been, I mean, it's not original opinion to like Dune, but it's been so inspiring to like see someone else do something really well.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, reading widely, but also reading within the genre that you're trying to create is also very helpful. We've talked a lot about it in our critique group, wanting to read some of each other's genres just to get a better idea on how does that world building happen, how do those relationships, you know, evolve and develop. So I agree, reading's a really good one. Find a mentor and join a community where we can all speak the same language and explore these ideas and help each other maybe get over some of these humps that we find in our individual processes. But it's also helpful to join like a critique group or somewhere where you are actually being held accountable for certain works. And, you know, it's come up in our group, well, I don't know if I'm gonna have the next chapter ready in time, you know? Can I re-edit a previous chapter and submit it again? Of course, submit anything you're working on and you can get that feedback. But most importantly, I think when it comes to inspiration, to sit down and write, we really have to recognize that somewhere deep down inside each and every one of us, there's this fundamental pressure to speak, to write, or to breathe our human experience. We have to remember that what we're doing is important. It's the world, our collective stories told through the eyes of a humorist, or a poet, or an essayist, or a novelist that constantly examines what it is to be human. And maybe even more so than journalism and many forms of nonfiction, it's in the storytelling and the world building that we really uncover the truths of ourselves. Speaking of finding our truth. And so ask the questions. You know, what am I missing? What might I be hiding from? Who might I be hiding from? How can I connect to this scene or to this character? What do I want from my writing? That's a really good question that all of us as writers should ask ourselves. You know, what do I want from my writing today? And am I getting it from my writing today? And if you're not, it really is okay to leave that blank page aside and take a deep breath, or read a book, or listen to music, or go cook, or go garden, and find that curiosity within yourself again. So we have an exercise today that we wanted to, it's a bit of a collaboration. And just talk about getting some creative juices flowing. Do you have the dice?
I do. Can I add something to what you said?
Yes, of course.
So this is another thing, and you're so good at it. Availability, making yourself available to listen and to hear and to learn from other people. Because I noticed that with you right off, that you're really good at like asking questions and engaging. So if it's something that you don't have that experience on your own, you want to know where it's important to you to know where somebody else is coming from. And like, you've asked me questions about stuff that I've written and all. and you just always seem to, make an effort to learn. So, I mean, you can't just go out and hope to pull if you don't make that conscious effort to pull from the things around you too.
Well, I think that's my theater background and a lot of my character development when I was on stage, you know, just constantly trying to figure out why does this character throw his hat in the trash can? You know, like I don't know why I do this. And so I just started really trying to figure out, well, why do any of us do anything? And so I do have a very innate curiosity.
You do. I know a lot of people who just make the assumptions and then they go on. But you actually ask the questions and try to learn like the truth behind something. So it just says a little, pull it all back around to the truth thing.
Yeah.
Yes, I brought the dice.
Okay.
And you've got your, what do you want to do first?
Okay, so and to work together and tease each other on our processes. Just to wrap up the meeting, did you want to wait to
No, I want to go ahead and just make
a really quick thing about the conference auction, and then Isaac, I've got all of the submission guidelines. Isaac's gonna talk about the upcoming anthology, and it should be on everybody's minds, okay? Go ahead.
For the last 2 years, we've had a silent auction at the conference, and that really has been one of the best money makers to pay for the conference, believe it or not. And I made up a flyer, which I forgot at home, and but we really need everybody to help contribute to this, something. So start getting your creative minds going. You can make a little basket, if you have a published book, put it in the basket and some items that relate to it. Like my book is about driving, so I put car washing stuff in it, and it could be tickets to an event. I used to work at the Grand Theater, so I always, you know, hit them up for a show coming up. Would you donate some tickets? Or we had another set of tickets last year that was really popular in the bidding. It was actually like a dugout seat for the Rome Emperor's game. You got to sit, didn't they get to sit in the dugout or right?
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. But even if you have season tickets to University of Georgia and you know you're not gonna get to go to one of the games, you know, that would be something people would love to bid on. It could be decor that's writing related. Trying to think of a couple other things. Some people did like self-care packages, you know, with lotion and, you know, soaps and, you know, stuff.
I have a
girly
question.
stuff.
So are you asking for, bring me a whole complete basket with a thing?
Yes,
You're not
yes.
asking for, oh, I've got 2 tickets for dinner at Longhorn, put them somewhere?
You can do it either, you know, I'd love for you to make a package, but if you don't, we had like a gift certificate to the Crazy Book Lady, and people bid on that. So it can just be a thing, one thing, or it could be a package. But if everybody does something, Karen's great at finding signs and pillows and stuff about lighting, you know, that people bid on. Where do you find them, at yard sales or thrift stores? And she's not telling, but she always brings stuff. So if you would all start looking for that item that you can contribute. Maybe it's something you've had in your home that you've enjoyed and you're ready to pass it on to another writer. My dad was a journalist, and he had all these old typewriters that he used to use, you know, back in the day, and we auctioned one of those off last year. So just be thinking about it, and you can contact me or anybody on the committee and start letting us know what you'd like to contribute. And I think we're gonna have all that set up on the stage behind the speaker. And so people will be looking at it while, you know, they're listening to the speaker, but then in the breaks they can walk around and look at everything. So please be coming up with something.
What
Very
about
nice.
signed copies or first editions, like of books? Is that something that?
Like a valuable book?
Yeah, like I have
that'd be-
several first
that'd
edition
be
signed copies of
amazing.
things.
Yeah,
I don't know if they're
yeah, that'd be amazing.
popular.
When do you, well, first of all, are you gonna cap this out at like a certain number so you don't have too many, or you just like bring it? I'll take everything you got.
At the start, just bring it.
Mhm.
I'd
And then
rather,
if you see you're
and
getting.
then I can say, I think we have enough.
Okay.
I'm sure.
But that would be a lovely problem. We had a lot.
We had a lot
She
last
mentioned the
year.
basket lotion earlier,
And
I
it
expect to
was a
see
lot of
those
money.
again.
It did make a lot of money.
Yeah.
So, and then my second question is, when would you like to have all this like wrapped up?
We
So-
have 2 months from today.
Mhm,
So by the 1st of May, I'd like to
mhm.
pretty much know what I have. And
Yeah, it's not fun like trying to find a place at the last
Yeah.
minute or try to go grab those
Or if you know
baskets.
somebody that has a business and they have an item that's not moving, Bryant runs a shooting range and he had like an hour's,
Mhm.
time at the shooting range, or just,
Yeah, I have to
you know,
reach out to him, because he
think about
probably
that.
will do that again. So, are you gonna house all these things, or would you rather the people bring that the day of, or, like the bigger things, if there's something bigger?
I can do some of both,
Okay.
we can go ahead, like if you wanted to bring something to next month's meeting,
Yeah, that's
you
what
know, I
I'm
can
wondering, like along
get
the
started
way.
with that, cause I usually, I fill out a little sheet, a bidding
Yeah.
sheet. And if you've just got 2 tickets to the Georgia game, I make up a little sign, with a bulldog on it that, just kind of make it stand out a little bit.
So maybe we aim that everyone brings something next month.
That would be
That would
terrific.
be nice,
That gives
yeah.
you plenty of time to.
And then we
categorize
kind of know where we
Or
stand.
maybe you know somebody, somebody with a small business, they're always looking to like put their name out.
Right.
So maybe you'll have something yourself, but thank you for doing this
Okay,
again.
yeah, thank
That was
you.
great.
Mandy,
Yes.
to piggyback on that, what
Uh-huh.
about sponsors? Are we still looking for sponsors as well?
Yes, we are. We're just like, gotta
So-
organize ourselves, but yes, absolutely.
So if we know somebody with a business or something,
Who would like to be a sponsor? Yes, we've just gotta,
get the thresholds.
yeah.
And you can even say like, they're sponsoring breakfast, and we'll have a sign that says this breakfast is sponsored by the Grand Theater or whatever. Or they can sponsor the keynote,
Yes.
or,
We need to get something out for that this week, actually, but we've got a, conference meeting after, the board is meeting afterwards to kind of talk about this, but how we're gonna do that sponsorship, but absolutely, reach out to us. You guys know where to find us.
All right.
The end, right?
Anthology.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yes, I meant the end of that stuff.
End of the conference, not
Yes,
end of the
end of the conference stuff.
Yeah. When is the
Everybody.
next meeting?
It is always the third Tuesday of the month.
Third Tuesday.
Yeah.
Do you want me to pass these out or just leave them available at the front?
We can pass them out if you got plenty of copies.
I think I do.
And the Facebook is Cartersville
Okay,
Area
next up.
Writers.
All right, Richard, let's get you out of here quick, this is the last topic and we'll wrap, right? Sorry, Katie, what?
He wants you in front.
Oh, in the front. Yep, we'll do.
On camera.
I know, we're getting used to that. It's a
I'm
whole
gonna get
new
Frank.
thing, reporting, we're trying to.
So the last topic will get you out of here. So the anthology, we're going to launch that on April 1st, and I didn't ask, I'm gonna take the prerogative here, being the public speaker. I did want to talk about the metrics a tiny bit. So when we started queuing up for the next anthology, we took a look back at the number of authors we've had year over year. First year we had 19 authors, last year we had 20. I would be really happy if we get 20% year-over-year growth. That would be 24 authors. That's very achievable. If everybody from the last year submits, we get a few more, we'll hit that target, right? So if you've been thinking about the anthology and you haven't done it yet, I would really like to see people who haven't submitted before submit. I'd like to get everybody who wants to submit, and let's hit that goal, right? So that's the first thing. And it's April 1st that the form opens, is that right?
Yes.
Yep. Keep me honest, we are extending the deadline this year until the end of May. Part of that is to align with the conference. So if we get new people joining for the conference, they'll have a chance to contribute as well. We're giving ourselves plenty of lead time this year, so we'll have, for all the submissions, we're gonna be like drowning in them, right? But we're gonna have plenty of lead time this year, 2 months to get the submission in. And when we put the submissions in, one of the things that specifically wanted to talk about was the formatting. You'll see that we do have submission guidelines. I believe Tammy has passed that out already. But, the submission guidelines, I did want to speak as an editor that's worked on the anthology before. If you don't follow the submission guidelines, the number one thing we're gonna do when we give your edits back is ask you to format it to the submission guidelines. We're gonna ask you to do it in your edits anyway. So that's one very practical reason, just to make the editor's job a little easier. But also, when you look at the submitting in the publishing world, if you don't follow the submission guidelines, they don't even read it. And again, something I didn't ask, but I'll take the prerogative on. I've worked with a studio called Bombshell Studios based in North Carolina for a while, and one of the tasks that I got was to evaluate scripts. right? And there was an open call, right? They're like, cool, send us your scripts. We ended up getting over 30 and divided up among all the producers. It worked out to about 6 scripts each. And, you know, things shifted, people had different responsibilities, so I ended up getting 14 of them. What I do when I had 14 scripts? The very first thing I did was go through that list, who didn't follow submission guidelines, right in the trash can, didn't even read them. So I can speak to personal experience from that. If you're going to be in a position where you have to read, you know, if you have to read 14 scripts in 3 weeks, you're going to look for a reason to not read them, right? So make your life a little easier and don't get just right in the trash pile. This is a really good exercise, follow the submission guidelines on that. So that's it. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, I'm really excited that the team has decided to do it early. This is something new. We're still finding our way with a lot of things, and this is gonna work a lot better. I know you guys just did this back in the fall, but this going forward is gonna be what we're doing. It's gonna make enough time, and so we're not shoving. I can tell you, personal experience, it is not fun to shove all that stuff in at the last minute. So, I think we're kind of evening out with the right timing for everything. So,
I think, you know, also the idea of doing it earlier, it gives us the summer to do the editing and the formatting and stuff, but, you know, these should be published and available for the holiday gifting, and I know that last year, that was the goal, and I think you were sweating bullets, like, it's not ready, it's not here yet, it's not here yet. So, you know, starting early, it's gonna just make it a much smoother ride.
yes.
Since it's not that far away, it says submit your work app to be filled in later.
Yeah, I was wondering, it's like, that's the most important thing on here, where it's.
Yeah, that's because, Madison is getting the form ready, and the form will go live on April 1st.
Okay,
So we will have the link to that as soon as we have that link, we will add it to the.
okay,
to the
that'll be on the
document.
website.
It'll be on the website, it'll be on Facebook, you can call me and I'll tell you what it is.
It'll be in the newsletter,
It'll
like
be on
all
the
the things.
newsletter.
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Got it.
Nobody will leave you hanging.
The website looks really, really good.
It does.
All right. Thank you everyone for coming. It's a wrap.
This was a great one.